Hello, everybody, and welcome to problem 10-6. So this is one of the more tricky problems, but we'll have some fun with it. So this is interest during construction. So we have Gritt Landscaping began construction of a new plant on December 1st. On this date, the company purchased a parcel of land for $139,000 in cash, paid $2,000 for surveying, $4,000 for title insurance. An old dwelling on the premises was demolished at a cost of $3,000, with $1,000 being received from the sale of the materials. Architectural plans were also formalized on December 1st when the architect was paid $30,000. The necessary permits for $3,000 were obtained from the city and are paid for on December 1st as well. The excavation work began the first week in December with payments made to the contractor in 2021 as follows. So you've got these payments then being made in 2021, and the building was finished in 2021. So this is going to be a good one. So the first thing is we're asked to figure out what's the cost of land. So when I go over here and I look at land, what's going to be going in there? Basically, the purchase price was $139,000. It paid $2,000 for surveying. And then title insurance. If you don't know what title insurance, it's probably a good idea for you to go online and check that out. It's essentially so that I know that I have good title to the, basically to the property I'm purchasing. And an old dwelling, so to get that land ready for its use, we had to demolish the building. That cost $3,000. And then I was able to save $1,000 by, after I demolished it, I was able to save them and sell the materials from that land for $1,000. Okay. So the total cost over here so far of my land is going to be a total of $147,000. And this all took place on December 1st. So let's go through here and then look at some of the other costs too. So this is my initial amount over here for the land. Then my next part over here is what are the costs of the building. So my architectural plans were formalized on December 1st. The architect was paid $30,000. This was to get the building going. And then also the necessary building permits costing $3,000 were obtained from the city and paid for on December 1st as well. So the excavation work began during the first week in December with payments to the contractor in 2021 as follows. So let's go first and figure out what do we need to do for 2020. So when I look at over here, 12/31/20, our land cost is $147,000. Building cost is, as of right now, it is going to be $30,300. 33,000, excuse me. Where did the 33,000 come from? It is the architect, and then permits. Okay, so what I now though need to deal with is capitalized interest during 2020, and also to figure out my amount of my interest expense. Let's first figure out what is going to be the amount of the actual interest expense. So my actual interest expense, because that's going to be the ceiling in terms of the amount that I can go through and capitalize. It's the lesser of the avoidable interest versus the actual interest. So the loan that I took out on December 1st was for $600,000. There was no other loans outstanding. It had an interest rate of 8%. So over here, my loan times my interest rate. And then what I need to do over here is then say, okay, my annual interest is going to be $48,000. However, the loan was borrowed on December 1st, so this was only outstanding for 1 month. So December 1st through December 31st interest So this is going to be 48,000 times 1/12 or $4,000. So that was the amount I have of interest expense. Now, but what I do need to figure out is what is my avoidable interest. To figure out my avoidable interest, what I need to do is I need to look at my weighted average costs of construction during the time period. So over here for my land, the land over here was 147,000. The next one is going to be, it is part of the building costs. The next one is going to be my architect. Joanna is going to kill me because I'm spelling this wrong. Oh, I guess I got that one right. 30,000, and then over here I had building permits, 3,000. Okay, so as I look at this here, these were my costs, right? But for the weighted average, I need to figure out the period of time that these were outstanding for. So this is for 1/12. Each of these is for 1/12, or December 1st through December 31st. So my weighted average construction is going to be 147 divided by 12, 30,000 divided by 12, 3,000 divided by 12. So my weighted average construction expenditures is going to be 15,000. So my avoidable interest is going to be my weighted average construction expenditures of 15,000. I'm going to multiply this by the interest rate of 8%. So my avoidable interest is going to be 15,000 times 8% or 1,200. So the amount of interest to be capitalized is going to be 1,200. So if my total interest expense for 2020 was 4,000 less my capitalized interest, which is 1,200, or I should say total paid for interest. So my interest expense is going to be 4,000 less 1,200, or 2,800. Okay, so when it comes to going through and dealing with the interest being capitalized, we do not need to allocate this between land and the building. Rather, we're just going to go ahead and put this into the building cost. So at the end of the year, the value of my land is 147. The value of my building is 34,200. And then lastly, my interest expense is going to be 2,800. Okay, so that kind of goes through and then helps me with this part of it. So what I am now ready to go through and do is to take a look at that was for 2020. Now what we need to do is to look at 2021. So when I go to 2021, I already have some expenditures. So let's go here to 2021. These are the payments that I went through and I made, right? So I made payments of 240, 330, and then 60,000. I completed the building in July. That's really important. So what I now need to figure out and do is that I know that the total amount of cash paid for interest during 2021 is going to be 600,000 times 8% for the year. So that is going to be the amount of the cash being paid for interest. What I need to figure out though is of that amount, how much do I need to go through and essentially how much of that amount do I need to go through and capitalize to the building cost. So let's go through and take a look. So what I'm going to do is my weighted average construction expense, or my weighted average expenditures for 2021. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with on 1/1. I can just go ahead and add up these three amounts. So I'm going to add up 147, excuse me, I'm just going to add up these two amounts. I'm going to add 147 and 34,200. That was outstanding as of the beginning of the year. So I need to basically take those into account. Then over here on March 1st, my amount here was 240,000. And then over here on May 1st, it was 330. And then over here on July 1st, it was 60,000. Now here's where it gets interesting. I need to ask myself to determine the weighted average is that how many months were these outstanding for the year? Now, normally what I would say is, oh, this is going to be 12/12ths. This is going to be 10/12ths, et cetera, et cetera. However, the building was finished on July 1st. So this was only outstanding 6/12ths, or January 1st through July 1st, or 6 months. Okay, so that's completely screwed me up on this question. So right over here, this is going to be 3/1 to 7/1, or March, April, May, June. This is going to be 4 months. This is going to be 5/1 to 7/1, or 2 months. And then this is going to be 7/1/7/1, or 0. So I'm going to take this by 4/12ths. I'm going to take this by 2/12ths, and this will be 0/12ths. So when I multiply these through in terms of determining my weighted average expenditures, this is going to be 281,200 times 6/12ths. Oh. This is going to be 240,000 times 4/12ths. This is going to be 330,000 times 2/12ths, and this here will be 0. So my weighted average construction expenditures it's going to be 225,600. So my avoidable interest is going to be my weighted average construction expenditures times the interest rate. Since I only had one construction loan and this amount falls below the $600,000, the amount of interest, the avoidable interest, is going to be 225,600 times 8%, or 18,048. My actual interest for 2020, or excuse me, for 2021 is going to be the loan amount of 600,000 at the interest rate of 8%. So my total cash paid for interest is going to be $48,000. So what's going to be happening here for 2021? Okay, so if we go over here to 12/31/21, my interest expense is going to be the difference between the cash paid for interest of 48,000 less the interest capitalized, which is going to be the avoidable interest. So my interest expense is going to be, excuse me, 29,952. So that's going to be my interest expense for 2021. Now, when it comes to the value of the building, right, I'm starting here with 34,200. During the year, I added 240 plus 330 plus 60,000 or 630,000. On top of that, I'm also adding, so this is my construction costs. On top of that, I'm going to be adding the capitalized interest, which is going to be right over here at 18,048. So my 2021 balances for, obviously for interest expense, was 29,000. For my building, it's going to be 682, 248. My land is not going to change. So it's basically going to be this 147 right here. So that's how, in terms of looking at this question for problem 10-6, that's the problem walkthrough. This is a very hard question. The thing that threw, and this is the second video that I made of this. What got me screwed up was this part here, because they finished the building. So I would say, oh, this is right here going to be the full year, but no, it's not. It's only during the time that the months of the construction. The other thing too is that you may be asking, well, why are you dividing this by 12, Tchaikovsky? Because it was completed in 6 months. The reason is, if you think about it, when I get to this value, I'm already kind of adjusting it for the average during the year, because then I'm taking this here and I'm multiplying this by the interest rate, which is an annual rate. And that's how I'm coming up with the avoidable interest. So that's problem 10-6. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I'm hopefully spelling architect for our former class architect. God, I miss getting a attack saying architect for our my awesome 202A student this fall 2020, who is now becoming an accountant. I will see all of you soon. Have a great one.